Let's talk human-wildlife conflict, especially in urban, rapidly developing and most of the times unsustainable areas. And I actually want to do a series of cases, human-wildlife conflict cases that I personally deal with on a day-to-day basis and how I mitigate them, all the successes, the learnings, everything. Hi. My name is Pranita and I'm a conservation scientist. Through my conservation organization, Adhvaya Beyond Barriers, I mitigate human-wildlife conflicts, especially those that are extremely underrepresented and overlooked. There were a couple of reasons for me to start Adhvaya, but I'm going to reserve that for a separate post. But one of those reasons was to make people more capable, not just educated, but capable enough to mitigate conflicts and in time prevent them as well. But today I want to talk about a very common conflict. And one of the most common species that get into conflict with people, monkeys. Monkeys have become extremely commonplace in urban areas for a lot of reasons. They are losing their habitat, and that is combined with people feeding them. And over time, they have evolved to be commensal species, basically species that have adapted to and survive alongside human communities. And monkeys are fed for very many reasons, right? That comes with its own conflicts. But we're not going to talk a lot about that. We're just going to talk about human-monkey conflict and one particular case that I really want to shine light on. Seeing monkeys near your homes or apartment buildings. And that is one of the most common cases of conflict in a lot of areas, especially urban or metropolitan places like Mumbai, Hyderabad, Bangalore. And very recently, it is also expanding to areas like Mysore. A couple of weeks ago, someone from an apartment complex in Mysore gave me a call and they said there is a single monkey, a lone male adult monkey who has come to their apartment complex and is just going door to door asking for food. He would also go drink water from their swimming pool and he would go into homes to get access to different kinds of fruits and vegetables. He was also extremely smart. Now, a lot of the apartment residents wanted to immediately get rid of him. They wanted the guards to chase him. They wanted someone to come capture him, relocate him, the whole shebang, right? But what this fellow would do when the guards started chasing him, he would climb up all the way to the terrace and make noises. And when the guards went to the terrace to catch him, he would just climb down from the pipe, which clearly the guards could not do. And when he was free of being chased by them, he would go back into the houses, find open windows and just enter to find food. Now, quite a few residents started panicking. The panic was to an extent where a lot of them were disinfecting their doors, their windows, everywhere the monkey had touched or stepped on because they were so scared that they would catch diseases from him. Now, not to minimize that fear or the possibility of diseases at all, it is a very real problem. There is a very real chance that that can happen for sure. But panicking about it is just not the solution. We need to be able to make informed and educated choices. This person who called me, they said they actually don't want anybody going and capturing the monkey or harming the monkey, but they were of course concerned for their own safety as well, which is why they got my number. First things first, I needed information from them, right? So, is he alone? Is his troop nearby? Does he look like a young monkey or is he an adult? To an extent that they were able to tell. What time of the day does he come visit the apartment? Is there one particular time or does he come multiple times in a day? What has his behavior been like? Is he being aggressive? Is he just looking for food? Is he just hanging around? Does he disappear for a couple of hours a day and then come back? If he does come back, what is the time that he comes back at? And most importantly, if there have been any cases where he has been aggressive towards certain people, or if there have been cases where people have been aggressive towards him. Now, after collecting all of this information, I gave them the basic rundown of what to do, which is essentially, please don't feed him. That is the first and most important thing that you need to do if you find a monkey outside of your home, near your apartment or in your neighborhood. Because once they are fed, they start expecting food from people around them. They start expecting food in that place and they won't want to leave. There are a whole lot of problems that come with feeding monkeys, but we're going to do that in another video because it's a huge issue and just not talked about enough. Coming back to the case of conflict, the first thing I told them was, please don't feed him. he will eventually leave on his own. Now, how do I know this? Because monkeys exist in something called fission-fusion troops, which essentially means males, when they reach a certain age, leave their troops and try to go find other troops to mate with, to be with, and sometimes they come back, sometimes they don't. Sometimes two different troops mix with each other, other times they leave. So these are called subtroops. So essentially, monkeys being group animals, social animals, they do require a troop. They do not do well alone at all. So eventually, even if one of them is separated, as long as it's an adult, it will find a troop, whether its own or a different one, and they will find their place. They will make their own place with some other troop. So because this fellow was a lone monkey, everybody just thought he was lost. Now, this is where education comes in to say, hey, listen, he's not actually lost. He will eventually find his way. Monkeys actually travel really long distances in a day, trying to find food, just going around the place, exploring. They're very active and they usually know their way. All you have to do is not feed the monkey, not try to relocate the monkey, just let him be and he will leave. Now, their next question was, but listen, he opens the windows, he comes inside the doors, and he basically has been trying to dominate or be aggressive towards women and children in the house. Now, this is a very valid concern, right? Because if somebody is hurt, if somebody gets bitten because of a monkey, end of the day, it is problematic. It is also not great for the monkey's survival. And the solution to that was, if you found the monkey, just close your windows, close your doors, and wait for him to leave. Now, their immediate question was, why can't you just relocate him? Why can't you just catch him, pick him up, and leave him where there are a whole troop of monkeys? Let's talk about that. The first thing we need to understand with relocation is it's actually quite complex. It's not as simple or easy as people make it seem. It's not as simple as just capturing one or a bunch of monkeys and just dropping them elsewhere. There are certain complexities involved. The very first thing we need to consider is what is the kind of space that the monkey is in. Because if it is an open space where he can climb up, it is not an enclosed space where he can be confined while being sedated for capture or relocation, it is problematic. Because once the needle hits the monkey and he climbs up somewhere, or he is in an open space, and we don't have access to him, it can be extremely unsafe and fatal. The chances of the monkey falling down and not making it are extremely high. Because when sedatives hit animals, they don't just take effect immediately. It's not like the needle or the dart hits them and they just fall asleep. It doesn't work like that. It takes a couple of seconds to a couple of minutes. And if the adrenaline is high, it takes even longer. Second, a lot of the times relocated monkeys just don't make it because the trauma of capture, the psychological effect of capture, and the new place, not knowing how they came there, not knowing where to find food, not knowing what is safe around, all of them have really tragic and complex impacts that is not enough talked about. So majority of the times when monkeys are relocated, they just don't make it in new places. And third and most important, not everybody has the experience or is authorized to catch monkeys. The monkeys we are talking about right now, bonnet macaques, they are protected under the Wildlife Protection Act of India. It is illegal to capture, trade, or have them as pets, and to even kill them, but that goes without saying. And in the relocation process, we need to have veterinary doctors who have the skills and the expertise to understand the concentration and the kind of cocktails that need to be used to sedate the monkey. We need to have skilled and experienced people who know how to transport a monkey, who know how to ensure that the monkey is safe during relocation. And before all of this is done, there needs to be research done, there needs to be some groundwork that is done to establish where can a monkey be relocated. Should the monkey be relocated? Because when monkeys find different troops, they form bonds and relationships based on their own dynamics. But when humans relocate them, those dynamics are forced. And we don't know the impacts of that. So with all of these complexities in mind, relocation was still an option, but it was the very last option. I had to keep it on the table to ensure that nobody would try to call an illegal, unethical monkey catcher and just have him captured and relocated elsewhere. So it was still on the table. It was just the very last option. Now, the next problem. Some people in the apartment complex were feeding the monkey and they were okay with it. The people who were not feeding the monkey, they were terrified, which is valid, right? Because a huge adult monkey coming into someone's home and they have their children, they're obviously going to be worried. But the complexity here, again, is that the people who were feeding the monkeys, the monkey wouldn't really go into their houses. It didn't really bother them. But he would go and snatch food from the housekeepers when they were having lunch. He would go into homes where there were only women and children and rampage the entire house, try to find food, get into the bedroom, get into the kitchen, dominate them, be aggressive. And of course, a lot of that was also him being afraid, but he still wanted food. Why is this? In the monkey world, there is no feminism. If someone is perceived to be bigger and stronger than a monkey, they usually don't go to them. Because monkeys function on strict social hierarchies, strict dominance and submission positions, which means they're not going to really want to trouble men because they are much bigger, they can be much stronger. But women and children, they will. So the people who are feeding him were quite indignant. They just went, he's not really troubling us. Why would we worry? We're just giving him food. We're doing him a favor. And they didn't really care that their neighbors were facing the consequences of that. So how do you go about solving this problem? Although I had spoken to a couple of them over phone, I had explained this entire scenario of why relocation should not be considered at this point, what is the best approach to take to prevent conflict, to mitigate this conflict, and there was an entire voice note that was forwarded to the apartment and the society people. Obviously, because of all of these conflicts, it wasn't efficient enough. It was still necessary that I go have this conversation in person. I spoke to a lot of the residents there. We had a whole long conversation, and the main thing that was happening there was the mothers were afraid for their children. They were worried for their safety. And I was also dealing with the people who felt terrorized, who felt terrified by the monkey entering their homes. One of the most important things when we are mitigating human-wildlife conflict is to really listen to what people are saying, is to really hear when they're expressing their fears, is to really understand the position that they are coming from. Because one, the fears and their worries are extremely valid. And two, if I just approach the entire conflict from a place of conservation, from a place of protecting wild animals, they're just going to say, okay, you know what, this person's useless, they're not really helping us out, they're not really hearing us, and they might resort to taking steps that are not safe or beneficial for the animals in the first place. And this has been one of the biggest gaps in human-wildlife conflict, especially in India. So I went and met with them. I validated their fears. I explained macaque behaviour to them. I explained what might be happening. We discussed possible options. They also wanted to know if firecrackers would be a good way to send him away. And this is a little bit of a grey area, right? Now, what we need to understand about these methods of deterrence to keep wild animals away is that wild animals are extremely sensitive to loud noises, to chaos. They get incredibly stressed. And stress increases adrenaline. It increases their survival instincts. It sharpens their survival instincts. Now, if it's all chaotic and loud, they don't know where to go. They don't know what to do. They are not thinking rationally. Their survival mode kicks in, their instincts kick in, and they are just going to resort to what feels best for them to be safe. And this is not a good place to be in. Now, if you're a single monkey who is around people and there are crackers bursting at you and there is nowhere to run, he's not just going to leave. He can possibly hurt himself. He can possibly hit himself against a wall, fall somewhere. He can climb onto electric cables and bring them down or bite them. And there is a possibility of him being electrocuted, and not just the monkey. Even people can be harmed. If the monkey feels cornered, if the monkey feels like there's nowhere to go, he will probably try and bite or jump on people, either to seek safety from a person around him, because monkeys are community animals, or he may bite them to just try and escape. And this does not end well for anybody. So after nearly 2 hours of discussing options, monkey behavior, listening to their fears, concerns and worries, and also listening to them talk about how the people feeding the monkey within the apartment were not really concerned about their neighbor's safety, we came to a conclusion. We cannot control the behavior of everybody in that apartment complex. But what you can do is take advantage of the fact that you understand monkey behavior now. So what would they do? This is what I advise them. If you cannot convince people around you to stop feeding monkeys because you feel threatened, or your children are feeling scared due to the monkey's presence, you put yourself in a position where you can protect your children. Yes, this is unfair. No, this is not the most ideal solution. But when a certain group of people don't care about the consequences of their actions on another group of people, what else do we do? How else do we protect animals and people? So we decided for the next 3 to 4 days, they are going to reach out to these people again and tell them not to feed the monkey. That's the first thing that they do. Second, whenever someone saw a monkey, everybody would close their doors and windows, not try to shoo him off, not try to raise their voices at him, because that just traumatizes, creates more chaos around the monkey, and it's just going to be a panic situation that nobody wants to be in. And if there is an extreme case when the monkey is around you and you do have children around you, you have to make yourself physically bigger. You have to stay calm. Yelling at the monkey, trying to shoo him away is not going to work. Because if you're scared when you're doing it, the monkey can feel it. All animals can feel it. People can feel it. So you have to make yourself bigger. You have to stay calm, and you have to stand your ground. And the monkey will leave. So we said, let's do this. For 3 to 4 days, let's do this. And in the meanwhile, when you guys are doing this, we, as in me being a conservation scientist and my research head, we are going to go around a little bit, because we have been studying and working with monkeys for a while. We do know where certain troops exist, and we are going to go around, see where the nearest troops are and see what we can learn about them. We really hoped it wouldn't come to the point of relocation, but we did assure them that in the next 4 to 5 days, if the monkey does not leave, if the conflict continues, then we can start to have a discussion with the forest department. We can start to have a discussion with the zoo veterinary doctors, write a letter to them, and mobilize veterinary and departmental support to see what we can do about taking him to a safer place, wild place, not to put him into captivity. But that also takes a lot of research and groundwork, like I discussed. And I'm not going to lie to you, I was secretly, strongly hoping and praying that it just does not come to that, because relocation is not the right option. It doesn't help. It really doesn't. Very rare cases it works, but this is just not a case where relocation was necessary. Thankfully for us, it did work. It did work. Right? Very simple things. Stay calm. Don't provoke, attack, or try to chase away the monkey. Don't give it food, because as long as they feel like there's food, there's going to be safety, there's going to be access to resources where they don't have to spend a lot of their energy on, they're just going to come back and they're going to stay. Eventually, the monkey did leave. And he made a comeback probably once after 2 weeks, just for a day. I told them the same thing. Please don't feed him. And he left. So that was that. He hasn't come back. The conflict did not escalate. No humans were harmed. The monkey wasn't harmed either. And 4, understand wild animal ecology and behavior and you are good. You're gonna be okay. The cherry on the cake is that the apartment residents now want to have a workshop. They want to work with us. They want to collaborate with us. And one of them especially wants to extend these workshops to schools. So this was a win. And I'm actually really happy that they were receptive to understanding how to mitigate conflict. And this has expanded to building capacity with people. So if ever there is a situation like this again, they know exactly what to do to de-escalate it. They can also tell other people they know what the right way to mitigate a conflict would be, what the ethical way, what the scientific way would be to prevent conflicts, to ensure the safety of both people and wild animals. Now, all of this being said, let's understand something. Monkeys in Asia do live around people. The rate at which development happens, the way in which development is happening, there is a lot of encroachment. There is a lot of unsustainable development where urban wildlife are just not considered. And that needs to change. But until it changes, we cannot ignore the fact that wild animals do live next to people. Especially in a country like India, where our population density is so high, and we are also a very biodiverse rich country, people and animals are in each other's faces. And until we can have policy regulations and policy reforms and better implementation and more capacity building, more funding and resources and manpower to conservation, we have to think of building capacity. We have to think about how to mitigate, but more importantly, we have to think about how to prevent conflicts from happening. Especially with animals as smart, clever, agile, and adaptive as monkeys. So this was a conflict case that was successful, but it is also the perfect case study and the perfect example of how you can prevent conflicts from escalating to harmful, dangerous, or unsafe situations. It really takes steps that are as straightforward as 1, 2, 3. Do this, do this, do that. Don't do this, don't do that. And as long as people can follow that, we're gonna be okay. We can do better. We can prevent conflicts. We can mitigate conflicts. But behavior change with people is one of the biggest challenges, whether in social science, whether in anthropology, but especially so in wildlife conservation. But I'm hopeful, even if it's one apartment building at a time, even if it's one city at a time, I am confident that we can continue this journey, we can continue building capacity, and that it does matter. It does lead to a positive impact. So next week, I'm going to come back with another conflict situation. Whether it's going to be a successful mitigation or something that I fell flat on my face and learned from, you'll have to find out. So subscribe below to learn everything about people, planet, animal welfare, wildlife conservation, and basically just how to coexist with wild animals better, and also integrate people's welfare, which is severely overlooked, but that's what we're here for. And if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments. I'm very happy to answer them. You can find me on Instagram as Planeta Pranita. I will drop the link below. Or if there are any cases you need consulting on, just let me know. All right, happy coexisting. See you.